and, but we won't be having anything on PFAS or water since we have no new testing. We'll then have public comments on the business agenda, and that follows. Excuse me. Consider a bench donation at Seaside Links, a special one-day wine and malt beverage permit for Mahi Gold, Comcast cable TV license renewal, and that's the license renewal for the town, municipal town. Then we'll go through an annual committee review and consider interview and appointment process, consider reducing membership of the Cultural Council, protocols for public participation in hybrid and in-person meetings, and not necessarily in that order, so I'll go through it. And then finally, next will be our vote to close the special town meeting warrant, and then finally the committee appointments. So let's start with the minutes for September 21st. Do we have any comments or changes or an emotion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve, sorry.
Second.
Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two edits. The first is on page 3. It is the third paragraph up from the bottom that begins "concern was expressed." It's in that same sentence right at the end after the phrase "town annex." I want to add the following phrase: "At the discretion of the chair of the meeting body." At the discretion of the chair of the meeting body.
Okay.
And the other is on page 4, right at the bottom, the last line where it says, "and transplanting of new trees." I'd like to add the phrase after the word trees, "and plantings." And plantings. The conversation that night was not limited to trees.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other changes? None? Let's take a vote. Shereen?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Next are public announcements and agenda item requests. Anything from the board? No. Town? I think Alex had something, or
Yes, I think I see Alex's hand up.
Hi.
Well, hi,
Yes.
welcome. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd just like to am I getting an echo here? Okay. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I'd like to let the public know that tax bills were mailed out last Friday, September 24th, and they're due in the treasurer's office no later than November 2nd at 4 p.m. November 1st is a Sunday, so they are due November 2nd. And just a reminder that payment can be made by credit card, cash, or check. Online payments will be available after October 1st, this Friday, because that is the actual date that the bill is dated. So the public can pay online, and you can access that through the town's website under the Treasurer Collectors Department. And also you can drop off a bill at 549 Main Street. We do have a drop box right there, in person or via mail. And if you do the bill pay through your bank, please allow 7 to 10 days for the check to arrive in the office. We don't want it to be late, but we like to let the public know that oftentimes those online checks take a long time. ACH service through the bill pay on the town's website is free, so that's probably the most convenient way to do it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything from the board? Okay, thank you, Alex.
Mr. Chair, just one thing to announce.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there is an open meeting law training this Thursday, September 30th at 4 p.m. It's a hybrid meeting in this room, so the public is welcome to attend, but masked, or to participate virtually through Teams, and that will start at 4 p.m. on Thursday, the 30th.
Thank you, Jill. Anything else? Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to our first thing up will be public comments on our business agenda.
Peter, did you ask the public for public announcements?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
at least I thought I did.
Elaine Gibbs has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Elaine.
Yes, I was just wondering if it would be okay for the public to hold their comments until the actual agenda item regarding D3, which is public participation in in-person meetings. I'd like to hear what the board has to say before I comment, because I'm not sure what the scope's going to be.
Okay, any comments from the board? I'm fine with that. All right, thank you, Elaine. We will.
Thank you very much.
right, any other public comments? Okay, moving to our first agenda item, business agenda item, which is a donation of a bench at Seaside Links. And is Dan here? Oh, yes. Don't let me get away with that.
You're going to have to do it.
Judith Giorgio will give us an update on the coronavirus.
Yep, you almost get me. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Yeah, I didn't see a jump up. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, just a quick update and announcement as well. So far in Chatham, we have 392 cases confirmed. In September, as of today, we have 30 cases. 19 of those are vaccinated, 11 are unvaccinated or status unknown. So last year in September, we had a total of 8, which I think you know that. Our incident rate is 20.8. Our positivity rate is 3.94, which has gone down slightly from last week. It seems to be hovering stable over the last few weeks, slightly up, slightly down. And that is the highest, the 4th highest on the Cape. The average age for cases in Massachusetts right now is 34 years old. And the average age of deaths is 73 years. So I thought that was interesting. And the cumulative number of deaths in Barnstable County is 501. And right now we have 6% ICU beds on Cape Cod that are occupied. I also wanted to remind everyone that they did, I'm sure you've heard this, that the booster shots or third doses have been approved. Those are for Pfizer only, for people 65 and older, residents of long-term care facilities, and persons 18 to 64 with underlying health conditions that are laid out by the CDC, and also 18 to 64-year-olds that are increased occupational exposure, such as in healthcare facilities, healthcare occupations. I did want to make an announcement. We have scheduled our flu clinics for this year. We have 2 drive-throughs scheduled, both at the DPW. So I want to thank Tom Temple for offering and providing us that use of the DPW. It works out great. The first clinic is going to be our annual adult clinic, October 19th, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30. And the second clinic is going to be October 28th, and that will be families, school employees, town employees, and that will be October 28th from 3 to 5. Both of these are going to have online registration, which I'm in the process of setting up right now with Barnstable County. So as soon as I get those links ready, I'll put that out there. Perhaps next week I'll let you know what the links are so people can start registering. I hope to have the link, at least for the October 19th, ready by next week. So that's all I have. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Judith. Anything from the board? Corey?
Just one question. Judy, on either of those 2 clinics, is I'm sure I'm screwing up the term, that the extra dose for the seniors available in either of those 2 clinics?
Yes, it should be available, definitely at the adult clinic, and most likely at the family clinic as well, but I will confirm that. But we definitely will have it at the adult clinic.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I saw Shireen.
No.
No?
Yeah, Judith, how many shots do you have how many shots will be available for the public? Do you know yet?
Well, our clinic, we're going to have about 180 positions, appointments for the October 19th clinic, and that's usually more than enough. We tend to only do about 120, 130 people every year, and it'll be about the same for the family. And again, for the family and town employees, we usually do a little over 100. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the board? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Judy. Good report. On the booster
Thank you.
shot, is the Pfizer booster only for those that have received the Pfizer initial 2 doses, or can Moderna recipients also receive that Pfizer booster? Do you know?
Yeah, the state is saying right now that they're recommending you get the same booster that you initially got. So if it's right now only Pfizer. So if you want to do something different, they are recommending that you talk to your physician about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any public comments or questions for Judith? I see Elaine's hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just a point of clarification. On those two clinics, I thought you said they were flu clinics. But
They're-
then, are you also giving the Pfizer boosters at the same clinic? I
No.
thought someone asked about the drive-through clinics for the Pfizer booster. And I thought you said yes, but then I
Oh,
thought.
I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood. No, the two clinics are flu vaccine clinics. We are
Okay.
not having any booster for COVID clinics,
Okay,
not
Thank you.
as of now anyways.
okay, thanks.
Thank you, Elaine. Anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you, Judith.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, since I'm back on schedule, I'll ask again, any public comments on our business agenda? I don't see any. Do you see any? Okay. We'll turn now to our business agenda, and that's back to our bench donation. And Dan Tobin, I didn't see. Yeah, I see you on. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. We have another generous donation for a bench at one of the tees on the Seaside Links Golf Course. Attending the meeting is Sheila Nugent, who is the donor of this bench, and she is also a member of the Golf Advisory Committee. The Golf Advisory Committee has had an aggressive plan of getting benches around the course for people that need a few minutes to sit while playing the course, and this will be another nice addition to the course and something that the Golf Advisory Committee has been working on aggressively. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Jeff?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Dan, and thank you to the Nugent family. I strongly recommend that the board accept this generous donation by the Nugent family and as recommended by Dan and Sheila Nugent.
Okay. You'd like to make a motion to that effect?
That's a motion.
Second.
Second? Any discussion?
I think, I thought I saw Ms. Nugent on the, in the meeting. I
That's
don't
what-
know if she had anything she wanted to add.
Oh, there she is. Sheila, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I just want to say that, you know what? We've been seriously blessed with such a beautiful golf course. I'm so happy to be able to do this, that people can sit there and enjoy our course.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and it's very generous. All right, any other comments? Let's take a vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Shereen?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Sheila.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. All right, next up is a special one-day wine and malt beverage permit for Mahi Gold. And it says Shireen, but, I mean Shauna. It's an S, right? Let's see, this is one we saw last week. And, let's see, is Brian on? I don't see Brian on here. Brian Volker? Shauna's on? Okay. Welcome, Shauna.
Hi, yes, this was, the board had chosen to not act on this application at the last meeting until some more information was available on whether or not there had been special one days issued for first night activities in the past. And we did have 3 issued in 2018. There were no applications for New Year's Eve in 2019, and the event was not held last year.
Okay, thank you. My only point is that I made it last time. I think the first night is going to be done after the fireworks. I don't know whether it makes a difference here or not, but any comments? Corey?
No, I appreciate the background information that we have actually issued licenses at New Year's on 3 different occasions. I had something in my mind that we had New Year's kind of more of a dry event day from past history. But since we have had, we have issued in the past, I guess we were not breaking tradition. But I would recommend 6 on this year. That's what we did the previous time for Mahi Gold, and I do think in line with the calendar events that may happen this year that I think it wouldn't be detrimental to their planning process. So I would approve it, or I would recommend us approving the one-day, actually, I would recommend that we move a special one-day alcohol license for wine and malt beverages only for Brian Volkel as a representative of Maui Gold for the services at 465 Main Street on Friday, December 31st, 2021, from noon to 6 p.m.
Okay. Dean?
Second.
Okay, any comments?
Yeah, I think closing it at 6 was receptive to my goal from the conversation we had with their manager last time, so this should be
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. Now, 6 o'clock is when the noise parade starts. However they're going to do it, they're going to have a noise parade this year. Okay. Given that, let's take a vote. I'll start with Shereen.
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is our Comcast cable TV license renewal for the town, the municipal town, not for all the residential. Welcome, Alex. Again.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Yes, in your packet tonight, I've provided a cover letter, and previously, I believe last week, we provided you with the draft, both the red line agreement of the tentative agreement with Comcast, as well as the clean copy. There's been a couple of changes since that, which I outlined in your packet, specifically to the payment schedule for the access equipment facilities funding, which is known as the capital. So we've just codified those dates on when that money will come to the town. And for the public's information, I'd like to sort of go over some of the items that it's in your packet, but just for people who might not have seen the packet, what this means to the town and why we had to renew the license, which is a 10-year license. As you might recall, the board had requested a 5-year license. Comcast would not agree to a 5-year license. So the term before you tonight is a 10-year license for Comcast, which will guarantee the funding provided for 10 years. The capital funding for the town had requested $500,000 over that 5-year term. Comcast had proposed $244,400 over a 10-year term. Through negotiations, we were able to secure $400,000 over the 10-year period, so $40,000 a year, as opposed to our current capital funding, which is $24,400 a year. And that will go to increase the infrastructure for the PEG access, the public, educational, and governmental access. We use that capital funding for upgrades both in the educational Channel 22, and we've done that with Channel 18 as well. And as you know, technology changes for the way that we deliver the Comcast, the television. Our franchise fee, which is currently at 4.5% for the contract that just expired, we had requested 5%, and Comcast has agreed to the 5% fee beginning October 1st, 2021. So again, the end of this week. Other items, we have what's known as the institutional network, which provides fiber between all the town buildings. This is not for the public, it's just the town's buildings. Comcast is moving away from providing these iNet services to the towns. Last year at the annual town meeting, we did fund $150,000 to help build our own iNet for the town. So we'll begin working on that. And then Comcast and the town have agreed to have the iNet provided by Comcast at no fee to the town for 15 months. So until December 31st, 2022, which will give us time to get that iNet, our own iNet, up and running prior to Comcast turning off the switch. So again, this was a big win for the town on this, the iNet, to have that funded within the contract and at no charge to the town. High definition channels, we had requested 4 high definition channels. Currently, we have 4 standard definition channels, or SD channels. With this contract, Comcast will provide us 1 high definition channel within 24 months, and we'll have to give up 1 standard definition channel. We tried very hard to get a second high definition channel, at least in the last 5 years of the contract, but Comcast would not commit to that because they felt that they would have to then supply all the other towns with a second or third or four HD channels. So we will still, try to get that if we can, but I don't think that that will be able to, once the license is signed. But, we can push Comcast on that outside of the contract. Some of the other items was a programming schedule. There's no way that Comcast can have a programming schedule on your TV for items coming up on channel 18 because they have a standard channel guide for all the different towns, and each town has different local programming. And then just an item to sort of clear up was the customer service office. You might recall during the last contract, they had closed their Harwich customer service office, and we wanted to make sure that they kept the Orleans customer service office open. So we had language that said that they would have a service office in Chatham or in a community contiguous to Chatham. Well, the contiguous to Chatham is North Beach, and with the storms that we're having, we're not sure we might be contiguous in the future. So we just asked for it to be reasonably convenient to Chatham subscribers. And they've just upgraded the Orleans office, so we don't feel that that's at any risk of being closed right now. So most of the language in the contract is standard language from the previous contract. Not much was changed. These were the points that were changed. And I know I did receive some comments from members of the board, and I'd like to clarify some of that. There was in section 1.8, which talks about Comcast rates. It's standard language, and the board doesn't have any authority to regulate the rates that Comcast sets. Section 8.1 does state, per applicable law within the law. So that's just standard language. Section 12.2 was talking about customer service and, 30 seconds for when a connection is made that you will receive a call. Well, we all know that when you call up Comcast, you get a thank you for calling. All of our customer service officers, customer service representatives are busy at this time. Someone will be with you shortly. I think that's how they get that. We do have a list of, they have to supply us each year with the complaint data that they do receive for appointments and customer service. And there really wasn't that much. There was probably just about 51 over the last year. And it's broken up by advertising, appointment service calls, billing, customer service. And for customer service, there was only 2 complaints, and they resolved that within 5 minutes. So, I'm sorry, no, they resolved that within 8 to 14 days. So we do have that. If the board is interested or the public is interested in seeing that, they have to provide that to us every single year. Another question was, is there another competition? Can we get Fios or Verizon? Unfortunately, we can't get Fios down the Cape, and Verizon is no longer applying for cable licenses, and I guess has not done so for some time. So that wasn't an option for us. And I think that was, I think that's about it for that. I was also asked about the amount of money that we do receive from Comcast each year. And for the franchise fee at the 4.5%, it is just over $145,000 per year. Capital funding, as I said, was $24,433 per year. That will now go up to $40,000 per year. And we also get a license fee as stipulated in the contract, which is 50 cents per subscriber, and it is just over $3,000. So for FY 2021, it was $3,019, and for FY 2020, it was $3,022.50. So obviously, we had less subscribers in FY 2021 than we did in FY 2020. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And our, I believe Huntley from the chairman of the Cable Advisory Committee is on the call, as Ryan Darman was also on the negotiating team, and our Counsel for a cable contract was Peter Epstein, who is not on the call but is available. Should you have any questions, I can call him and get him on.
Thank you, Alex. And Dean, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate your responding to some of the questions I had asked you over the last couple of days. I want to go back to the rate regulation because Section 8.1 of the contract says, "The town reserves the right to regulate basic service rates and charges to the extent allowable under state and federal laws." So are you saying that the reason we can't do that is because federal and or state law prohibits it? Is that the explanation there, that qualifier that's in?
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay.
was the explanation that I heard from Attorney Epstein.
Yeah. Well, I certainly, appreciate the efforts that you and the rest of the team made in the negotiating process. It's just that the system is so skewed against the town by statute and regulation. We're dealing with an extremely huge company, and they get a 10-year contract for a relative pittance, but I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it. I wish we had some competition when it comes to cable TV in this country, but we apparently don't. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dean. Yeah, one of the questions I had, and also I received, had to do with, can you get FiOS and Verizon FiOS? And it's not even on the Cape. I mean, I'm familiar with FiOS. My family had it 15 years ago. But according to Verizon, we're in a rural area, and you don't see them say this, but in their business case discussions, just, they can't make a business case to bring it in. It costs so much to put it in. I don't know if that's true, but any other comments? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alex, thank you for that summary, and thanks for your efforts all along here, along with your negotiating mates of Ryan Darman and Huntley, who I know has been on these calls before, and Mr. Epstein, your counsel. Just a couple of comments. In light of the comment from Selectman Castro, I appreciate the kind of the David and Goliath type of situation we sort of feel here. But I have to applaud you and your team's negotiating to, you increase the capital funding by 64%. To go from 24,400 to 40,000, 24,400 to 40,000 every year is a 64% increase. So you ought to be applauded for that. So I I think it's really going to help our capital funding for all this stuff. The franchise fee, I think you did a good job there. You got it up 50 basis points for the franchise fee, and that matters. And I think we anticipated the change in the INET so that we already had it funded through the warrant. So I think getting them to agree to extend it through next year, the next December, is a good move too. So I applaud you for that. HD they're in charge there. There's not a whole lot you can do but arm twisting and moral persuasion, and I think that's always difficult. Then changing the language in the customer service, I giggled when you said the Orleans thing. I giggle every time I see that. But anyway, I think that was a good change as well. So I thank you for your efforts and applaud that. I do have one question in particular that I think is confusing to the residents here. How does this agreement kind of, in a macro sense, affect the retail customer? I just want to be clear that what does this really have to do with Jeff Dykens getting his Comcast bill at home? Does it have anything to do with me getting my Comcast bill and what's included or not?
Yeah, that's something that we were very aware of because we didn't want the fee to the customer to go up. So currently the customers are being charged for the 4.5% franchise, it's a pass-through charge, and the capital funding. However, there's also the INET funding is built in there. So with the INET going away, I think it's pennies, so you really will not see a difference to the customer.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Alex. I thought it was a good job. And I know you guys have spent a lot of time, and they're not the easiest folks to deal with. But anyway, I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Any other comments? Could we have a motion to approve? And
Move to approve. Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? No. Okay. Start with Jeff.
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Shereen?
Aye.
Chair says aye, and again, thank you, Alex, and yeah, it is a good job compared to when you came to us, 3-4 months ago? Nice increase.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is our annual committee review, and we have a number of things to do. But before we start, Shereen would like to make a
Thanks,
comment.
Mr. Chairman. I have a potential conflict of interest with the discussion on the Cultural Council. So I just wanted to ask you and the board if they would consider discussing everything else within the interview appointment process and the other committees. And then I'll recuse myself when the discussion on the membership comes to be, if that's okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Given what we have to do, I thought, let me offer a suggestion on how we proceed. As far as the committees, I'd like to start with the committees. And I'd like to start maybe looking at the overall committees, like in regulatory and so forth, like on pages 1, 12, and 22. And if anyone would like to talk about anyone individually, let's take them out as a list and then talk about those only. And once we do, the cultural will be on that same list anyway. And then we could move into, I'd like to move into our appointment and interview process, what we'd like to do there, and then end up with the procedural issue on committee review, on voting, for public procedures, our process for public input, and the memo that we have here. And I think that covers everything. We'll see as we go on. That make sense? Committees, the interview process, and then the vote on the, and then a procedural issue on committee review. Okay? All right, so let's start with the regulatory ones, which is our page 1. There are 7 of them. I might make a comment, too. I did this in my spare time, but we have, what, somewhere in the neighborhood of 41 committees. And if you start adding up the number of people that are there, we're at somewhere over 260. I didn't get really specific. And having said that, just to get ahead of myself a little bit, we do a lot of, we have a lot of great volunteers, and we go through the interview process continually over the year, and we can get into that later. But I said it says a lot for this town to have that many people, and we get shortages, but we have pretty full committees. So having said that, regulatory and charged by statute, are any here that you see that you'd like to pull out? I don't on this one. Okay, page 12. These are the non-regulatory charged by statute. And I had the cemetery and the cultural on this one. Anybody have anything else?
I had those 2 items for 2 committees for comment.
Okay. Anything else anybody has? All right.
Mr. Chair, I just had one thing. So just sort of the board's information, the meeting location and days here, some of them need to be updated. So like for the Airport Commission, they no longer meet on the first Monday of the month. They meet on, I believe it's Wednesdays, and they do meet here. And then when you get to the Cemetery Commission, we no longer have the DPW conference room for meetings. That's used as workspace. So I believe they've been meeting at the community center, but I just want to note that.
I was wondering, do we need to vote on that, or that's just administrative?
It's administrative. We just need to update once the board reviews it, then we can update it.
Dean?
By way of updating, some of the, I didn't note all of them down, but some of the composition of the committees, the number of members is not accurate in a couple of cases, not many. So perhaps,
Sure, we should update that too.
yeah, just to make
Yeah,
sure. that-
that's why I pulled out
Okay, thank you.
okay. So I guess we have cultural and cemetery, that okay? And then we go to page 22. And I had North Beach because it was in our group. Corey?
I also had North Beach and the Economic Development Committee.
Okay. All right, let's start with
Hold on,
the,
I'm not, yeah.
go ahead, Sherry.
Waterways, Shellfish Advisory, South Coastal Harbor, and Aunt Lydia's Cove together. I just wanted to throw something out to everybody on that.
That's in, under,
Other-
okay, that's all the waterways.
Yeah, all the waterways, yeah.
Don't let me forget it. I'm sure you won't.
Whatever.
That's right. Okay, let's start with the cemetery. Since that's the first one on that list, the cemetery. And I can tell you the reason I brought it up, I know it's not within our purview, but I was thinking maybe we need to increase the number. And I know we can't do it by ourselves, but we'd have to ask for a change in the statute, I guess, and it's just it's a question. I don't see a lot of interest in that. I'm just asking. We have 3 people on it right now. It's very visible, it's a lot of work, and I thought, why not raise it? We have individual right now that wants to be on it, and we have potentially others, so if we raised it to 5, we don't want to do 4 or 5.
Is it a question of the activity of each of the members, that maybe if the member makeup was different, that
It could be. I mean, yeah, that's like
that
in
might
any
be
committee.
part of the issue, that there might not be, everybody's not pulling their weight on the
Yeah.
committee,
Well,
you know.
Corey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not, at the moment, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the cemetery committee's oversight and the conditions of the cemeteries and, who's responsible for what and et cetera, all that fun stuff. I'm less interested in pursuing the changing of the membership number, because it's going to be, it's not a short task. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a process. And I'd be more willing to focus on clarifying what are the responsibilities of the cemetery committee, what is being done, what's not being done, what should be done, and just focusing on the mechanics at hand. We have 3 members who are willing to serve. We have others who are interested, and maybe they'll want to serve, just as a citizen, helping out with input. Who knows? I don't know. But I would be more inclined to focus on the duties at hand and figuring out what has worked well, what is not working well, and where we can fix things. So that's my thought.
Okay. Dean, and then, Jeff, and then back to you, Shereen.
Me?
Dean, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree with Select Board Member Metters. I mean, several of us received another complaint about the condition of one of the cemeteries over the weekend, which I forwarded to town staff. I will say, I mean, I certainly would be receptive to increasing the size of the commission to, say, 5 members, but we have basically an inflexible statute that says 3, so there are only 2 ways of changing that. One would be through a charter change, which would have the effect of a statute. I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense. We don't have committees recited in the charter specifically, except for the Finance Committee, I think. The other would be special legislation. The problem with special legislation, in addition to the time it takes, and the charter change takes time too, is that we have, 3 or 4 bills up on the Hill right now. You start throwing more bills up there while these others are pending, it's probably not a good idea. But I wish we had some flexibility. I wish it said in the general laws you could have a committee of up to 5 people, but it doesn't. It just says 3. So that's where I come down. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Yeah, I think we ought to reach out to the current cemetery commissioners and ask them, to write up what they believe their charge is, and then kind of bring it back and have a discussion about it, number one, to Selectman Metter's point, or question, to make sure that we're kind of all on the same wavelength, as we know what the town is doing, what the cemetery commissioners think the town should be doing or isn't doing, and then what the expectations are for all the parties. So I think kind of brokering that conversation is probably a really good way to start kind of down the road of figuring out what we think they ought to be doing, and what they think they ought to be doing, and what the town's expectations are that they ought to be doing. then I agree with Mr. Selectman Castro, and our hands are tied with respect to the number of members of the committee, or the commission, I should say. But I think the Cemetery Commission also could reach out to the townsfolk that believe they have expertise and ask for that expertise, or ask for some input if they think, somebody has some value added. So I would suggest, I'll go back to the Cemetery Commission if you like, and kind of broker that conversation, and have them write up a mission statement, if you will, of what they think they ought to be doing, and bring it back. I think that's one way to go about it. I mean, that's the suggestion I'm making.
Yeah, change their charts. Thank you. Shereen?
I was pretty much on the same page as what Jeff was saying, to just have everybody on the same page, know what the expectations of the committee are, and what the town staff are doing, or how we're taking care of the cemeteries, and get everybody all on the same page. Agree?
Okay, so basically on Cemetery Commission, we would, I don't know if we'd have to vote, but we'd send it back send the
Yeah.
charge back to the commission.
I'm
And,
the liaison. I'll circle back with them.
okay,
Yep, I'd be glad to do that.
Corey?
Just so kind of we can close the loop on this discussion on this, maybe at some point in time after the Cemetery Commission discusses things amongst themselves and town staff input, we circle back to a board, maybe have as like a committee update from them one
Yeah, I
day in
agree.
the future, whatever time is appropriate, so we can make sure we're crystal clear on the conversation at hand, and we can kind of address the emails that we've gotten over time, and hopefully get everyone on the same page and working together to do what we all are supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Super.
Yeah, okay, good.
All good, yep.
Thank you. Next one I have is North Beach. Did I miss one, go out of line, or is that tied to yours?
I think that was Corey with the North Beach.
Yeah,
I know back in 2016, we did had a public hearing to discuss whether we should abandon basically the committee. We didn't. I know we've had a couple people over the last couple months check it off as an area of interest, yet we've never appointed anyone recently to them. I guess maybe we got to have that discussion. One, should we keep pursuing membership for the North Beach Advisory Committee? What would staff's recommendation is it even needed at the moment? It's a committee with no members, really active members at the moment. So I'd like to figure out what's the best benefit for the town, because if we want to keep it, I'd like to kind of focus on a recruiting process to fill those seats in a timely manner. And if it's not deemed that we should keep the committee, what would be our next steps? So.
okay, thank you. Shereen and then Jeff.
Yeah, so Jeff and I serve on the advisory committee as sort of the staff the select board fill-in for the lack of a committee per se. And we do find that people do attend meetings at certain times when there's an interest in a particular issue. But the fact that somebody has stepped forward with interest, I mean, I'd like to be able to see if we can make one more appeal to the public, and then if it doesn't happen, then, I mean, we're just simply meeting when we need to on, the status of the beach with the bird mitigation issues and, erosion things. Maybe there's certain portions of the jurisdiction of the North Beach that could be overseen by another committee. Or sort of melded in. I don't know who that would be at this time, whether it would be, Coastal Harbor or Waterways, Waterways doesn't make any sense, but, one of the other committees that might be able to, or the Climate Change Energy Committee, I don't know. But I think we should really give that a little bit of thought before we nuke it.
Corey, go ahead, Jeff.
That's fun. That's some input that's greatly appreciated. So, I mean, I would suggest that somehow we figure out a focal campaign to recruit members that we are going to be appointing to the committee. Because, like I said, I think we've had like 2 in the last couple of months I've checked off, if my memory serves. But we've appointed them to other committees at the time. I don't believe any one of them would maybe want to serve on 2 committees, but it's worth a conversation to some of those.
Yeah, so maybe Jeff and I could put our heads together or
Yeah.
something, come up with some sort of concept of what that might look like if we did sort of put the responsibility onto another committee, or what that would, description would be. if
Okay, Jeff.
That's helpful.
Yeah, no, I agree with Selectman Davis. I think it's important if we're going to try to rekindle or recraft the committee, re-energize it, that we, understand what its charge is and what our expectations are for what the folks ought to be doing as an advisory committee. I also think it's just North Beach, it's now North Beach Island. And I think, just as a comment, that there was a lot more energy and interest in this committee when we had a lot of camps over on the Outer Beach. And now that we only have 2 camps left, the interest has waned. But there will be interest, especially at North Beach Island, as we've experienced dramatic overwashes all last winter, and frankly, there were overwashes this summer. There's one major overwash right in front of CBI, right in front of Claflin Landing. I was on the beach a couple weekends ago, and we were sitting there, and waves were coming all over during the day at a high tide. It was a real rough day. But so we're going to have, in terms of just future, whether it's the Climate Committee or North Beach Island Committee or North Beach Committee or Waterways or whatever it is, we're going to need to pay attention to North Beach Island, and especially the middle there, right across from CBI, because we're exposed there. We're going to be exposed there. So anyway, I strongly support an effort to get the committee back together, but I think we need to be clear about what it is they're doing. I think the issues there kind of cross many committees, to be honest with you. The management crosses many committees. So I'm willing to tee it up, but I think you and I or somebody, we got to get together and think about what the mission is and what we're asking folks to do.
Okay, thank you. I see Shauna's hand's up.
Yes, I just wanted to convey that I had posed the question to Ted Keon, the Director of Coastal Resources, asking his opinion, and Paul Whiteman's, what they felt the committee could be doing at this time. And they felt that it probably wouldn't need to be a committee that meets regularly, but as needed, and they would certainly be willing to work with members of the board to establish a new charge for the committee.
Okay. The only comment I'd make is there was I don't know if you guys saw it, the Cape Cod Times article about how much activity there was over there and all through Orleans this past year. And they were, I don't know if they were bragging, but they made quite a bit of money. So that's good. And so anyway, that goes into whatever our discussions are later. So anything else on North Beach? I think we know where we're going on that. All right, let's do all the water ones now, Shireen. Water and sewer, nope, waterways.
Waterways, Aunt Lydia's Cove, Coastal, and
Sure.
Shellfish Advisory Committee. And the reason why I put that together is I was just going to throw this out here to see how anybody would feel about the idea that Waterways Committee be created as the overarching committee for some of these other committees with representatives from those committees as members of Waterways. We have a large committee, but they're all looking and reviewing the same materials all the time, and obviously from their perspective. But if Waterways would be the overarching committee, or would have representatives from the other committees, I don't know if that would affect better communications and help for the staff to be able to create, just how work is done.
Jeff?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at the same issue, and we got a lot of pushback from some of the individual committees, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's more efficient. I think it would be potentially more streamlined in terms of decision-making and communication. I think they do rehash the same issues over and over. For example, the mooring bylaws that are forthcoming could go to one committee rather than 2 or 3 or whatever. Although Waterways would weigh in first and foremost, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's something we ought to pursue. And Waterways would be the parent, if you will, with representation from Shellfish, South Coastal, and who else? That's it.
Coastal Harbor,
South Coastal
Aunt
Harbor,
Lydia's
yeah.
Cove.
Yeah,
I would keep Aunt Lydia's separate only because it's so distinct, but I would certainly entertain notions of wrapping it in. But
My other idea, just to throw it out there, would be that they, as those committees, would, agree to meet 4 times a year, just because they're on the same, and maybe there could be more efficiency in presentation of projects through that way. I just, just looking at the efficiency side.
Corey, I just want one comment. You think what you're thinking is, we'd have a waterways committee that would be made up of representatives from all the other committees. The other committees would still have the functional responsibility for what they're looking at, like shellfish and so forth.
Yeah, well, the conversation, it's just a conversation right now, but
Yeah.
I think that would somewhat be what you'd be looking at.
Okay, Corey?
I guess my initial response is I'm not overly supportive of that. I think it's probably too strong of a term, but it looks like we're expanding another, if I'm understanding what the proposal is, that we got kind of adding another layer of groupings, because I know one time we were talking about kind of combining a bunch of the waterway committees.
Right.
And so this seems to be the opposite direction, adding another layer of conversation. I do know I'm a liaison to 3 of these committees. I do know the chairs of Waterways, Aunt Ladies Cove, South Coastal Harbor, and even Aunt Ladies Cove. They're communicating, so the communication, I think, is improved greatly over the last year or so. They're trying to, address, the mooring regulations is a big topic, but just other items that have come to discussion, Coast Guard status, et cetera. So I do think we have a lot, and we have a lot of new members on some of these committees too. So I do think they're functioning relatively well. And I do support the concept of having maybe the committees meet on a quarterly basis or whatever kind of time frame. That I think would be a productive conversation, a productive meeting. So we don't, so we have things streamlined in conversations and we don't get redundant on certain topics. That I could definitely support. But I'm not crystal clear on the vision of this concept, I guess.
I guess the vision is more like the CPC committee has representation from interest to, when they're discussing, the allocation of funds and the projects that are coming forward. They have representatives from other committees sitting on their committee that represent those interests. So that's what I was thinking would be a waterways committee would be made up of representatives from those committees plus, at-large members. I think it would help for the meeting regularly issues that might be happening, communications, the projects, a lot of this stuff that is a lot of double duty, I think, and that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Jeff and then Dean?
Yeah, I think having representatives on waterways from the other water committees is really kind of a more efficient way to have, a joint meeting, if you will. So there's cross-communication. So I'm open to the concept, similar to what CPC has and membership from other regulatory committees and representative committees in town. So I'm open to the concept.
Dean and then Corey.
Yeah, I guess I have some of the same cautionary thoughts that Corey has about this, but it certainly merits or is worth discussing. I think if you're talking about recomposing the Waterways Committee, we probably should hold a public hearing on it because of the provision in the charter, which is quoted in Shauna's memo. If the select board determines that any board, commission, or committee does not appear to serve a purpose or that another method of achieving the board, commission, or committee's mission is desirable, the select board shall hold a public hearing and take any action deemed necessary. Now, I'm not sure if your idea, Shireen, fits within that language, but it's certainly within the spirit of that. I think that would make more sense because I remember, we all, I think, remember when we had some conversation about combining committees, which is not what you're asking or suggesting. There was a lot of pushback, and we got a lot of education about it from various committees and the harbor master. So I think that should be the vehicle that we should pursue if we're going to consider this. So I just offer that as a process question.
Before we have it, well, we could have it as an agenda item without having a public hearing.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, we could make it an agenda item.
I'm throwing it out there for discussion and for some feedback. There's nothing set in stone, obviously. It's a concept I'd like to explore, in more depth And I think Waterways holds a lot of, sway with things that are going on in town. And I think these representatives of the other committees have a lot of value to bring to their conversation, rather than being, that I think could help with the communications and some of the decision-making as we go forward, because we're going to see a lot of dredging issues, shoaling issues, things that are going to impact that maybe Waterways wants to see happen that Aunt Lee's Cove our Shellfish Advisory have some conflict. But if they can be at the table to talk about it, it's a great savings for a lot of people in getting things moved forward.
Okay, so Corey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'll just finish up my thoughts. I mean, completely open to having a conversation dialogue. I mean, that never hurts. Very open to that. Because, I mean, I look at some of the members, some of the committees and some of the membership, variety of background, variety of philosophical positions, variety of personalities. So how do you, put that together for the best representation? I don't know. But more than happy to have the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Let's move on. I think I'll put it on as a potential agenda item. All right. And next is the last one is the Economic Development Committee before we go to cultural.
I only bring this up. This is one of my committees. Well, there's two that aren't meeting right now. One will be the Cultural Council, which will address a mechanic issue in a second. But Economic Development Committee has not met for quite some time. I know a lot of it had to do with the pandemic and meeting schedules, and some of the members were very busy with certain things in their lives. I did reach out to the chair just before the summer kicked in, and he'd been dealing with a lot of busy things going on. And traditionally they take the summer off. So I'm just wondering if we we have a specific item or items that we want to charge them to kind of pick things back up again. If we should reach out to them and be like, okay, you guys ready to go again? All members are ready to keep serving. Start a meet. Set a calendar to just get going. And do we, as a select board, have a item or two that we want to charge them with to pick up from? I mean, they have topics they had discussed in the past, but it's been some time since they've met. So I would personally like to see this group up and going again and meeting. And I just didn't know what the board felt is the appropriate way to proceed with this, and any specific topics they would like to charge them with.
Shereen.
I've heard this too, that's what they're looking for. They were looking for direction. So I would just say that this would be a great agenda item that we could go over, and perhaps we could, if some of the members wanted to attend, that would be great. But, we have a broad scope of issues and presentations that they've made in the past that have been very valuable to our decisions. So let's put something together as an agenda and see where we land on it.
Yeah, I would agree, and I also agree. This Economic Development Committee has done a superb job in providing providing a real understanding of what the requirements are for families living in Chatham. That's one, and they did an in-depth analysis on a number of things. So I agree, and stick it on as an agenda item. Okay, and lastly, we'll go to cultural.
Yeah, I'll just step out.
All right. I'm going back. There are 18. Or actually, the page is 19.
This goes to kind of a discussing of necessity. Cultural Council, as you can see, Mass General Law, can have a minimum of 5 members, a maximum of 22 members. Currently, the membership status of our Cultural Council is 9 members. We only have 4 members seated at the moment, 2 of which are brand new. They actually have been sworn in, but they have not even attended a single meeting yet. Because with a 9-member status and only 4 seats filled, they don't have a quorum to take any action. So I spoke with their chair on a couple occasions, and one path we could take is just wait for more people to step forward and try to fill that fifth or sixth position, and then let the cultural council make some recommendations about their membership status. Unfortunately, we haven't had a huge influx of interest beyond the two new participants, which I'm thrilled to have, at least willing to serve, and I think they're going to make great members moving forward. So we discussed, the chair and I discussed that from just getting the cultural council up and going to do their duties that they want to proceed with, is to reduce it to 5, which is the minimum, not my preference, but at least that gives them a quorum requirement of 3. They have 4 members, so they would be fine to get going. They usually meet the first Monday in October, first Monday of the month. This would be October 4th, I believe. So I would like to get them to a status where they can start meeting, voting, reviewing the grantees status, all that fun stuff. And with a plug that I would also like to hope that they would recruit and encourage more members to step forward, so that maybe at some point down the road, we're having a discussion of increasing the membership back to 7 or 9 or some other number. But at the moment, they need to get a status where they can start functioning. So my recommendation to the board is to reduce them down to a 5-member committee, so they can proceed with their duties.
Any other comments? I'll add I agree with what he said. Dean?
I agree, and I offer a motion
And I'll second it.
to change the composition of the complement of the Cultural Council from, was it 9?
Nine.
9 to
Nine.
5 members, effective immediately.
Yeah, and I second, yep.
Okay, any other discussion? The only other comment I'll make, Corey, is, they 2 new recruits.
Yes.
Super interviews. They were very much involved, and congratulations to the chair for being arm twisting. Actually, she did a nice job. All right, we'll take a vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay.
Job, Corey.
Anything else we need to do on the committees? You okay with what we have so far? We have 2 agenda items for sure.
Like I said, I'll update who's the staff liaison, and we'll update the meeting schedule per se.
Okay.
We're gonna
go ahead, I'm
we're gonna go back to like the interview appointing process, right? Next,
Yeah,
okay, perfect.
we're going to
okay.
do that right now. I'll wait for Shireen. There you are. Okay. We'll start, now we'll talk about the interviewing and reviewing process. Now, I mentioned before, we have a lot of committees, and we have a lot of people. We go through this process, and what we found in this last 6 months or so, we're having relatively a lot of new people too coming on. And a lot of them are not familiar with our boards, but they want to do something, and they use this as an opportunity to see what they might like best, which is fine. The problem we've run into is, I don't even know if I'll call it a problem, it's a challenge that we don't have a standardized time of how we do things, because we get to a point, and this was the first time, I think, unless you guys have noticed it before, that we get to a point where we have a couple of interviews, feel pretty good, and all of a sudden we get another one. So we have to wait for that interview, then we keep on going. I don't like the idea of spreading out interviews. I mean, if we can. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect system, but if we could standardize in some manner, and the package has, okay, do we want to do it monthly, a quarterly, or whatever? I'm open to the board. I know I'd like to have some. I mean, I think I'd like to have some sort of a system where we have a cutoff date. But we can't forget somebody, and that's my issue. So I see Corey's hands up. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I certainly always want to encourage people to step up and serve on our boards, committees, and commissions. I think we're very blessed to have so many people with talent and a willingness to serve in our communities. So, but I do think we can improve our process from a number of perspectives. But I do think maybe some kind of, and I hate to use the term deadline, but some kind of like break point to collect people who have filled out the talent form and want to serve, whether it be quarterly. I think monthly might be too short a time. And of course, this is all going to come in big chunks. I think we're going to have big rushes, and then there's going to be like idle time at a lot of times, depending on openings. We have appointed a fair amount of new people over the last year or two. So hopefully they're not going to be stepping down anytime soon. So I'm hoping that we don't have a tremendous amount of interviews to come forward. But I do think when we do the interviews, couple just general thoughts. One, when it comes to our regulatory committees, I would be more game to have almost like a marathon interviewing process for various boards and committees. We traditionally want to have them full membership of the select board present when we do those interviews. So maybe for efficiency, that would be a better possibility for us to do. The advisory committees, when we only really need 2 or 3 of us present, we could probably be more flexible. But that's my initial thought on that. One item of the interviews that I just want to throw for a conversation is the presence of the chair of the committee that the individual is looking to serve on. When people have one committee checked off, it's very clear what they're looking for. When some individual has multiple committees they're checked off, do we bring 4, 5, 6 chair individuals in present to speak? An interview that happened a few weeks ago for the Conservation Commission, the chair being present, I think was extremely important to the individual interviewing. They get information during the interview, ask some questions. There actually was a follow-up conversation between that individual and the chair for clarity on the roles and responsibilities, and the individual thought at this time, I'm not going to proceed. So having the chair present on a lot of these boards and committees, I think is a valuable tool both for us and also for the individual who is seeking to serve on the committee or board. So I do think I want to find somehow to be as efficient as possible with having our chairs available to be part of the interview process, but I support their presence. Other than that, I think, maybe lately we've had a lot of marathon snippets of interviews. It seems like, a couple of weeks we're doing Shauna's sending emails every week saying, hey, when's I'm available. So, if we can get more efficient with that, that would be wonderful. But at the end of the day, I still want to encourage people to keep serving and stepping forward because there's a wealth of talent out there. And if you're willing to serve, we are more than happy to find a spot for you. So.
Before I move on, and I'll go, Dean, just one comment. The one that I always wondered about is, I agree on regulatory boards, but then we have those that are not, but they're charged by statute, should we have the whole board available for that? Just a question. I don't need an answer. It's just a question that would put to the board. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I joined in with Corey on this agenda item request, and some of the comments he's made I agree with. Jeff can recall, because he was on the board before any of us, but my impression in talking with previous members of the Board of Selectmen, as it was then called, is that the process that we have now has really grown exponentially beyond what I think was envisioned when they started doing interviews. And as important as I think it is to interview prospective candidates for committees, and as valuable as I find it, and I enjoy actually meeting these folks, although unfortunately we're doing it virtually these days, mostly, I think we have too many interviews. And I think we have too many interview sessions for 1 or 2 people, rather than a larger session with everybody. And we have too many repetitive interviews. And we're obligated to interview anybody who's on a statutory committee or on a regulatory committee. I guess that's the way we've treated it. Not to single anybody out, but how many times do I have to interview Frank Messina? I know what he does. I know what he brings. And, and I think he would ask the same question. He has asked me that question. Why am I constantly being asked to re-interview? And that's true of so many other people who have served on committees. So I think we should try to restrict that. If we can have a marathon session, perhaps we could do it on a Saturday. Especially when we get into May and June is when we're really busy with these interviews. And we have a pretty good idea of who wants to be reappointed or who's applied for these regulatory committees. I agree with we should invite the chairs. I think anybody whose committee is checked off, and sometimes we saw one recently that had perhaps 8 or 9 committees, I think we should at least invite the chair. If they participate, that's fine. I think their participation can be valuable. And I think we should have a cutoff. I'm not sure what it should be, but I do think there should be a cutoff. And I also will go so far as to say when a vote has been scheduled, posted on the agenda for a committee appointment, I don't think that vote should be pulled if we've already interviewed people simply because someone has applied at the last minute. I think they should wait for the next round. So those are my thoughts on how to proceed. But I think we've got to, I think if we don't do something to rein in this process, it's going to get worse in terms of the significant burden that it places on everybody's schedule to try, and Shauna's schedule as well, to try to schedule it, and including the committee people and the applicants. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, just a couple comments. I agree with much or all of what Selectman Metters and Board Member DeCastro have already stated, but I think we need fewer interviewing sessions. And fewer, I call them ad hoc. They're not really ad hoc. They're very well planned by Shauna, and she's scurrying after us all the time, just trying to corral us, to find us, to interview folks. But I think the Saturday notion is a good one. I think we really need to revisit whether or not we need to interview folks that we've interviewed once or twice before for regulatory and statutory bodies. Frank Messina is a perfect example of how many times I've interviewed Frank Messina 6 times. Why do I need to interview Frank Messina for the Historical Commission? Again, I don't. We don't. As a committee, we don't. Unless we have serious misgivings about his leadership or his participation, which obviously we don't. So I think we really need to revisit, do we have to interview all the folks that we've already approved to be on this committee or commission once or twice or 3 times before? I don't think we do. I think we're wasting our time, unless we have a serious reservation. I think the chair-president is a good thing. I think that last example is an excellent one. I think having a chair-president is a very good idea. And a cutoff, you just want the cutoff. I agree with the concept of a cutoff. You just want to make sure that you're not, biting off your nose to spite your face because you want to get the interviewing done. There may be a candidate out there that's on the fence, blah, blah, blah. So I think we have to think a little more closely about that, but I would in general support the notion of a cutoff because, hey, at some point you got to fish or cut bait. You either want to be on this committee or commission or not. And then again, I would applaud a Saturday or a Saturday morning, even if it's a marathon session for new people, for new people. And I just stress that. I just really do think we're wasting our time interviewing folks that we have already appointed once, twice, and sometimes even 3 times to these regulatory boards. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Maureen?
I agree on all points. I think the monthly, quarterly deadlines are a good idea. The only thing about multiple interviews of committee members is if a new select board member comes on board and hasn't, but, maybe we make it a policy that you please touch base with that person before you're making a decision about whether to reappoint him or not, that it doesn't have to be a formal interview if the whole board is, unless it is an entirely new board, then obviously they'd probably want to do that. But I think the corralling and the busyness of having multitude of interviews or trying to schedule them have been a little difficult during the COVID side of this. And I like the idea that we oftentimes have them before our select board meeting. We'd have a down and dirty couple interviews and then move on to our business. The idea that we have multiple days of the week, that it's a challenge. And so I think if we can figure out look at the year and look at the deadlines and look at the committees and look at that, I know that's a lot of strategic planning or strategy, not strategic planning, but strategy to get it all sort of nuanced out. But I think that would be a more structured way to go, because I have not been enjoying this process and found it a bit challenging to show up to some of the interviews over the course of the summer because of my schedule. So I just want to know what to expect, when to expect it, and plan for it. And I think it'd be helpful for people that want to interview as well.
Dean?
Yeah, I just had a suggestion I want to offer, but I also want to comment on something that Shireen just said. about individual members, a new member, for example, of this board interviewing someone that everybody else has interviewed 5 times. I think that's a good idea. I do remember when I was first on this board, I was away during an interviewing session for a particular committee, and there were 2 applicants for the same position. There was an open position, so when I got back from vacation, I interviewed individually each one of those applicants separately, so I could have a handle on who they were, and I think we could perhaps encourage that. My suggestion would be, and I don't want to create more work for Shauna, but she's really the person that has the handle on this. Maybe she, rather than us taking some kind of vote tonight, maybe she could kind of distill what we're, from this conversation and come up with develop a
Yeah,
plan of action.
You're reading my mind.
Yeah, and come back to us
Yeah.
with something to chew on and then take a vote or reach consensus about.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the comment was already made. You know, our toughest time, but probably the easiest to schedule is like May, you know, the April, May. There's a lot of, we know the regulatory boards are coming up, and whether we do them or not, that's a question. But that we ought to be able to do. I mean, we can get that some sort of a method. Saturday's not a bad idea. I don't know about Corey, it's a little different, but or you know, one afternoon. That's something that we could discuss some more. But I do think, and I agree, I hate to say cutoff, but if we're going to have a marathon meeting set up one Saturday, it has to be advertised ahead of time, and that this is what we're going to do. And we're going to be looking for people for committee, board, council, A, B, C, D. And maybe we do that a month or 2 in advance, just to get it all started. That's one way, but it doesn't catch everybody at all. I don't know. Need anything more from us on that? I don't know.
I think we can come back. I think it'll probably be the meeting of maybe October 12th. Just let us digest it and then figure out the best way. One of the items, I'm not sure that we got to speak about it, was if you want to designate, one meeting a month out of your weekly select board meetings for interviews only. I'm not sure we discussed that unless I missed it.
No, we probably didn't. I remember reading that, take one meeting it depends on what time of the year it is, you know. I mean, kind of, whether we could do that. It's a thought, I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts? I'm not overwhelmed with it, but I wouldn't say no either.
Well, again, it's always scheduling, right? But the idea is if that's a planned meeting, it's a planned meeting, and we expect it, and we know ahead of time, it makes it for a lot easier to prepare for and to attend. So, if it fits into the flow of our work, then I would be amenable to it.
Okay, to Dean? No? Corey?
I was just going to say, it would probably depend on how many applicants we're looking to interview. Would probably kind of drive that, demand. Maybe it's one regular meeting every 2 months. I don't know, and it's going to fluctuate throughout the time of year too. So, I'd be open to maybe entertaining using a regular meeting for interviews from an efficiency point of view. But I want to make sure we're doing our regular workload first. So that's my thoughts.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we have enough. All right, let's go now to D3, protocols for public participation in hybrid in-person meetings. And we agreed that we would have public comment after we had a discussion on this. And we had a memorandum. Any comments from the board before I go to? Dean?
Well, this is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a citizen request from
Right.
Ms. Stimson, and I think she's in the audience. I don't know if she wants to make a presentation, but I think she might want to kick this off.
Hey, Ann, would you like to say anything? Welcome, Ann.
Welcome. Can I take this off, or do you want me to leave it on? I don't care. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, when you're closer to the mic. It's tough with the
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ann Timpson. I want to thank our town manager for scripting a very informative letter to the committee chairs and staff liaisons covering the various procedures for meetings and clarifying the public meeting in person and hybrid meeting protocols. As you know, I requested an agenda item last week as a result of a very unpleasant incident at the September 13th Planning Board meeting directed at my attendance in the audience. I was masked, vaccinated, and tested negative for COVID, but seemed to present a real threat to one of the board members. I thought I was attending a public meeting, and as a taxpayer, year-round resident, and voter in Chatham, assumed I was within my legal rights. I did not attempt to speak or put up my hand. The board member, who spoke at great length, clearly didn't want me to speak at all, nor to be in the audience. He waited an hour into my attendance until public comment to complain to the board about my presence. He stated, point of order, stopping the meeting and insisting that I should not speak or attend, as the agenda listing prohibited both as written, he said. Although Katie Donovan explained to the board that I could not be prohibited from a public meeting, I left immediately, as it was clear that I was being singled out by a board member and mistakenly being treated as if I was breaking the regulations, when in fact I was more informed than the board on protocol. At the same meeting, one citizen who wished to speak was cut off in midstream by the chair when they mentioned the runway protection zone, whilst a letter on a similar subject, RPZ, was read in full by the chair. We cannot have double standards. Board members must treat all citizens fairly and equitably. After I left the board, took a vote in favor of denying the public in-person access to their meetings. Although they used COVID precautions as the reason, the public does need an abundance of access to regulatory board meetings as they control and mold the future of our town. The Select Board has opened their doors to the public, and the Planning Board, with access to the very same large meeting room, should do the same. If one member wishes to participate remotely, he can use Team Microsoft. As a courtesy to our citizens, I request that the Select Board discuss and establish a set of standards as defining public meeting attendance for all committees, including regulatory boards. The town manager's letter is a foundation for this discussion, and I request that it be published in the Chronicle as well as on the town website. I also request that the Planning Board review the open meeting laws, which sounds like you're on top of this, and be given copies of Ms. Goldsmith's clarification letter included in the download packet for tonight's meeting. And one final request for the clarification on why the Charter Review Committee is not using Teams Microsoft, but instead Zoom, and why that very important committee has gone remote because of one member's COVID concerns. There has been no explanation for the entire board prohibiting the public in person when they are so keen to garner citizen and stakeholder feedback. Thank you again for graciously allowing me and others to speak at this podium. Public speech is one of the most valuable tools of a democracy and should be encouraged and respected by government officials. And thanks for bringing this up right away. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sounds as if the letter that, the memorandum that Jill has prepared dated September 29th that is in the packet goes a long way toward addressing the concerns that Ms. Timpson has presented, and I certainly would encourage, if it hasn't already, that it be sent to all the committee chairs anyway, and the staff liaisons to the different committees and boards. Also, I would accompany that distribution with a copy of the public participation policy that the Select Board adopted back in 2016 that reiterates and emphasizes the importance of public participation. I don't have any information on the comment concerning the Charter Review Committee. I'm not sure. Perhaps, Jill, who makes the determination whether a committee meeting is going to be held hybrid or simply virtually?
Mr. Chair, so it's up to the chair of that board or committee to decide whether to go hybrid or in person. The platform, there was some confusion. So we use Microsoft Teams platform. It does require that the staff liaison or a staff member who has a town email account participate on that meeting because that's the mechanism to record it. So in the draft memo that I have in the packet, we specify that that remote meetings will be conducted via MS Teams specifically.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and also, as you mentioned, everyone's going to be going through training for open meeting law discussion.
We're encouraging all boards and committee members and anyone who's interested. It's an open meeting. And we do typically in January redistribute our policies. And so we can make sure that we do that then, if not sooner, if the board, we held on this draft memo just to make sure it was consistent with the board's discussion tonight, and then we can get it out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's get it out as soon as possible, so
Yeah.
totally support it.
Getting it out.
I totally support. I just have one follow-up question on the Charter Review Committee. That Zoom meeting was posted, correct? It was a public posting agenda meeting.
It was posted with the Zoom link in it.
Okay.
What I have to review is how it was recorded, if it was recorded, hopefully it was, and uploaded to our system.
Okay.
And that's the compatibility issue that we have and why we use Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
Okay.
Has the chair been directly contacted on this issue? Do we know? I mean, as a direct occurrence, you know.
I don't believe so. I know that there were some discussions internally with staff, with IT, but that's something that we plan to do after this
Okay,
memo.
thank you.
Okay. We need a motion on the memorandum?
Yes.
Can I vote? Dean?
You're going to entertain public comment as was requested. Do you want
That's
to
a very
the
good
motion
question.
first?
And I see a hand up, and it is Elaine.
Do you want the mo-
Apologize, Elaine.
You want the motion
Wait a minute.
first, or-
Anybody from the board yet anymore?
I think we need to move it.
No, I don't need it, I don't think.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from the public first. Elaine? And then Gloria.
Yes, thank you. Again, I'm a little confused here. I thought what we were looking for was consistency throughout all the boards. But what I'm hearing is that the chair of the planning board can decide that the entire board is remote, and then therefore there's nobody able to attend it in person. I think there should be consistency with those two rooms there if to meet, and if there's members of any committee who wants to be remote, they can. But to keep the public out without giving an explanation as to why they decided to go totally remote. When the week before when Ms. Timpson had the problem, none of them had masks on, none of them were socially distanced, and she was in the back row. And to go from that to remote totally so that the public can't come in, I think that the public deserves an explanation. We should have the opportunity to do both. If it's hybrid, and that means the boards actually meet in the building so that the public can attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Gloria?
Thank you, Gloria Freeman. As you know, I also want to thank the town manager for this letter of explanation. I like the hybrid arrangement, but given the choice, I would always choose to attend meetings in person if possible. it was disappointing to hear some members of the planning board state that while they prefer to meet in person, they essentially would rather meet virtually than have to allow citizens to attend their in-person meetings. I don't believe the governor had that in mind when he set aside some sections of the open meeting law guidelines. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria.
Dean?
I guess I think,
As a
Thank you.
feedback.
I guess I have a question for Jill. So are hybrid meetings, are they only possible in this room, this particular room?
At this time, the small meeting room was in the process, and I believe it still is, of becoming a hybrid meeting room.
Okay.
But it's only, it's at this time, and we have a lot of meetings
Yeah.
scheduled in this room.
It seems to me that if, you know, I like the hybrid meetings. I mean, we have an audience of 1. Tonight, we had an audience of 2 last week. We have a request to the Board of Health about masking. But if a committee or board is going to meet in this room, I think they should be obligated to hold it as a hybrid meeting and let the public attend if they choose. If they want to participate remotely, that's their choice. But I really don't think it should be a decision of the chair to say, or even the committee, to say we're only going to meet virtually. If they want to meet virtually, then they shouldn't be in this room.
Well, you use a lot of resources to be.
Exactly. Now, there are some meetings, and we had a meeting of the Council on Aging in the small conference room in the community center, which frankly I felt very uncomfortable about because we had 10 people in that small room. And, you know, that's a room where there probably should be masks. But you can't do a hybrid meeting in there because it's not electronically set up for it. So I know that's how I feel. You know, we're doing it, we're doing it. I don't see why other boards and commissions can't do it. And I think that's more consistent with what, I agree with Ms. Freeman, with what the governor was talking about and with the open meeting law. Thank you.
I see Kathleen. Katie Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that the planning board has gone back to fully remote meetings. They are not meeting in the large meeting room any longer. Their meeting last night, all board members and the public were fully remote. So I just wanted to make that point clear. Once they understood that a hybrid meeting with them in person also allowed the public in the room, based on concerns about COVID, they chose to go back to a fully remote platform at this time.
Katie, they're going fully remote. They're using Teams just like we used to when we were fully remote, and the public can participate. Right?
That's correct.
Okay, let me, Jeff, and then back to
Yeah,
Dean.
thank you. That was my question. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, Dean, I'm sorry.
Do I understand, Katie, the reason that the planning board has chosen to do that is because of concerns about COVID? Because until we had this sort of resurgence of the COVID variant, most of the regulatory committees that I was hearing from, the zoning board, the historical commission, they wanted to go live and in person. So this is a movement in the other direction. Is that the reason?
Yes, that was the understanding that I took away from their vote at that meeting on September 13th.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, so just to get back to resources, hybrid meetings do require 2 members. We only have 2 members of our Channel 18 team. So that has been a little challenging because they do work 4 days a week, 10-hour days to accommodate the morning meetings beginning at 10 o'clock as well as the evening meetings that may go until 9 o'clock or so. So some of the boards and commissions wanted to do a self-service room, the room next door, the small meeting room, but some of them have gone fully remote because the governor allows for that, and they didn't feel comfortable either masked or unmasked sitting so close together. This is the only room that we really can spread people out for now.
Okay. Any other comments, or take a motion for the memorandum?
Excuse me, could I just make one more comment? Elaine Gibbs.
Okay, yeah, I see Gloria too. Do you want to speak one more time also?
No, I'm sorry, I'll put my hand down.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Elaine.
I guess that was the point I was making earlier, that the planning board can vote to go remote with no real reason. We've spent a lot of money over the last 2 years making this room that you're all in safe. There's plenty of room to socially distance. And I don't understand how a regulatory board can just say, we're just going to go remote because we don't want the public in the room. And that's what they said. And there was one person sitting there. They are not overwhelmed with a lot of public members. So I cannot understand why, with all the protocols we have in place, where they're not willing to meet when the decisions they make impact this entire town, and yet the public can't come out to participate on issues that are important to them. I think there should be a consistent, if any one member has a problem, fine, they can be remote. But I think all the boards that normally would meet in that room should meet so the public can attend, that should be an option, and not to just vote with no explanation given as to why they don't want the public in there. It's no different than you guys. I guess you're really brave because I don't understand the problem with the planning board, and that's what prompted this whole thing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Jeff?
Yeah, I guess if the chair of the planning board and the planning board itself wants to meet remotely, as long as our public has access, similar to what we've done for a year and a half now on the Teams platform, if they want to meet remotely, I guess I don't have a problem with that, as long as the public has access to participate in that Teams meeting. If a regulatory board wants this room, then I agree with Selectman Castro that, we ought to staff it up and it ought to be face-to-face and or hybrid. I mean, it can be, so those are my thoughts. I mean, as long as public participation is allowed on a remote meeting, I'm okay with that. If the chair and the regulatory board wants to do it that way out of concerns about COVID, is what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
Yeah, do we know which of our regulatory boards are meeting in this room? I know the Historical Commission has started to meet in this room. The Zoning Board, I think, is meeting in this room.
I know ZBA.
Is Conscom meeting here, HBDC? Are they still meeting remotely?
I would have to go on the website unless Mark from the Channel 18 booth could let us know.
He's coming in
He's
now.
coming out.
And just a note, until June, I think it was June 15th, the board had required virtual meetings only. It wasn't until June 15th that the board gave the option to the committees or the chairpersons to have hybrid meetings.
So the question is about Historical Business District is fully remote and Conservation Commission is fully remote. Everybody else has been in person with the exception of the Planning Board that has now changed.
And the Airport Commission has been fully remote. I
Yes,
believe.
yeah, exactly.
Fully remote with public participation allowed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rick.
And also broadcast live on Channel 18.
Yes, thank
Yep.
you. Yeah, thank you.
All using the Teams platform.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they should. Okay. Any other comments, discussion? I'm liaison to the planning board. I'm going to talk to them. Any other comments? Janine?
Well, I would suggest that, I don't know if we need to take any vote. Did you want to vote, Jill, on
The memorandum?
on the hybrid? If you're in this room, I would just include it in your memorandum. If you're meeting in this room, the meeting has to be hybrid for the time being. As far as the planning board, I think perhaps their reason for going remote, and it sounds like they're akin to a couple of the other boards, as long as there's public participation, perhaps that could be communicated better to the public, consistent with what Katie said, and maybe that's something, and Peter, as you as their liaison, could communicate to their chairs so the public understands why they're doing what they're doing. It is broadcast live, I think, that the planning board.
Yes, it is broadcast live on Channel 18, so the people watching Channel 18 have a number to call in if they want to participate.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So the memo does not contemplate the select board requiring in-person hybrid meetings. I just want to note that. It's leaving that decision up to the chair. So if the board is interested in changing that, then I need to change that in the memo.
is that consistent with the governor's notice? I mean, that's what I thought, why we were doing it.
The governor's notice is a waiver to the in-person quorum requirement. And under the governor's extension of the emergency order, it allows for hybrid meetings, but it doesn't prohibit in-person meetings. And we have, as a policy decision, have already implemented if a board meets in this room and it's broadcast live, it is a hybrid meeting.
Let's, Shireen first, and then,
So as an example, the select board meet as a hybrid. We allow public participation. I think we're setting the example in the protocol, and I think we should include that in the memo so it's perfectly clear and not left up to the chair. A remote meeting's a remote meeting. Hybrid meeting means this, and an in-person meeting means this. So I just think that would keep it clear. There wouldn't be the misunderstanding that Ms. Timpson went through, and there's clarity, and public participation is protected and respected.
I see a lot of heads nodding. Jeff?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I would move the memo with that included as a directive from the Board of Selectmen. If you're going to meet in this room, it's hybrid, and I think that's important.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll go for a vote. Shireen?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you, Ann. Okay, next is a vote to close the special town meeting warrant for October 23rd, 2021. Okay, Alex, welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in your packet tonight is a agenda report regarding the special town meeting, as well as the draft special town meeting warrant. Reminder to the public that the special town meeting is scheduled for Saturday, October 23rd at 9:30 a.m. at Veterans Field. This will be, I think, the fourth outside town meeting that we've had since the pandemic. And so let's all hope for nice weather that day. However, tonight we're looking at the 3 articles for the special town meeting. There has been changes to 2 of the articles since you first saw these articles. The first change is to the prior year bill article, as the amount has increased since we received 2 additional invoices since you first saw this article. So Article 1, prior year bills, is requesting $11,066.53 as opposed to the original amount that was presented before. The Article 2, wells 10 and 11, there's no changes. That is borrowing authorization. And the major change for this article is under Article 3 for wells number 5 and 8, as we've requested an increase in the scope, the amount, and a change in the funding source, as the amount requested is $1.4 million, which will necessitate borrowing for that amount, as we don't have that amount available in the water surplus. So again, both the wells 10 and 11 and wells 5 and 8 are coming from the water department surplus. We don't foresee any increase to the water rates to cover the debt service for the 1.4 million. And I don't know, I'll explain a little bit about that because, as you know, wells 5 and 8 have had the PFAS. So we're looking to have a temporary and a permanent solution to take care of the PFAS, as well as the iron and manganese that will be done later in the year. So as I understand it, again, the temporary solution is to get 2 10-foot carbon vessels, or GAC vessels, as a temporary solution that will get up and running and can treat the water for PFAS, and then those vessels can be reused in the permanent solution for wells 5 and 8 when the water treatment plant is constructed at that site. So that's the reason for the increase in the amount and the scope for $650,000 for the to get the vessels, to install them, and for any costs associated with those. And then those will be used in the permanent solution later. So Again, what we're requesting the board to do tonight is to revote the recommendations for Articles 1 and Article 3, and then to close the special town meeting. Also noted in the agenda report is that the request for the PFAS source investigation. We've received the 3 proposals, and we expect to make the award within the next couple of weeks. However, the costs associated with this will be covered through the town manager's consulting and engineering account. And Jill and I are both here, should you have any further questions.
Thank you, Alex. Just a comment. I'm glad they're doing what they're doing, especially for PFAS, given the unknowns that we've gone through and the upticks that we have, and it's just makes all kinds of sense. I've seen something similar to this done back at another place where they had to take care of it, and they used a temporary system that then went into the formal system. And if it's the same kind of technology that I was thinking of, this is a no-brainer. I mean, you don't have to worry about the integration into the main system. It's already part of it. They do have to do a few other things, but in general, I don't have a problem. Any comments? Dean?
Yeah, Alex, this is a technical question. Answer, but in the explanation.
Dean, you got to put your mic on.
Sorry. Thank you. This is a technical question, Alex, and you perhaps don't have the answer to it, but in the explanation under wells 5 and 8, it says this will not treat the entire flow from wells 5 and 8. The plan will be to treat a stream of water and then blend the water into the distribution system to meet the MCL. So do we know how that works? Is it just a portion of the water coming out of 5 and 8 that's going to be treated? And what happens to the rest of what comes out of 5 and 8? Do we know?
Unfortunately, I do not have that. That language came from the engineer.
Okay.
So I would guess that it's, I wouldn't even
Okay.
venture to guess.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I can see if we can get that for you.
Well, we
though.
should get that explained before, the time of town meeting. Now, Peter,
Yes.
were you suggesting that this temporary fix can be incorporated into the permanent?
Yes.
We need to get that confirmed as
You should
well.
explain that, too.
Okay. And then, Alex, this is a finance question. The impact of the 1.4 million debt issue at an interest rate of 3% over a 15-year period is estimated as $16.28 for the first year. Is that on the average assessed property? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that would be on the average assessed property if it were to hit the tax rate, but this will not hit the tax rate. So again, this is coming from the water rates, and we have enough water revenue. The water revenues closed out very strong last year, and so we don't expect any increase in water rates, and I was just trying to illustrate that to
Okay.
the board.
So to the town manager, do we, what do we need to do? Revote our recommendation on Article 1? Article 1's already been placed.
Yes, all the articles have been placed. It's because of the dollar amounts for 1 and 3 have,
So we
Increased.
revote the recommendation or vote a new recommendation for Article 1 as proposed by the finance director, and for Article 3 as proposed by the finance director. I so move.
Second?
Jeff, you had your hand up. I need a second first.
I second.
Serene seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
Just on the increase in Article 3, I just, this technology is tested, this GAC, carbon media vessels, they're tested, and Dean asked the same question I had. Are we just certain that this can be used when we expand capacity? So we're going to have to have more of these GAC units, and so these are going to work with the larger project as well. I just want to get certain that,
Yeah,
I just want to be certain.
and I'm not going to speak for the engineers,
Yeah.
but what they said here and what I've seen before, the answer is yes, but let them bring it up to you so you feel comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the technology is tested and it works, and that,
These are not, well, I don't know what technology it is. I mean,
Yeah.
these things get better all the time, most of the time, but it's a carbon-based filtering system is what it is.
Well, it just sounds to me like this is temporary, so we got to be clear that, these 2 units, they're going to help clear it up, are temporary, and then we're going to need more money with respect to the same technology going forward when we have more flow. That's all. Then I had another question on well 4, but that's totally off topic. So I just think we need to have the answers when we go public with this stuff.
Yeah, Corey and then Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I'm going to support these, or on the re-votes, I guess, but I would like to get a little more information on the blending of water. It's the only thing I have a little bit of pause on, because I believe there's still like some steps that this board would need to take to approve it, and DEPs, et cetera, et cetera. So there's still a little bit of clarification I would like on the mechanics of that, but, we got to move forward on these articles.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Alex. I see you.
Yes, I just want to confirm that, yes, these temporary vessels will be able to be used as a permanent solution, so we don't have to purchase 2 new vessels. That was from the engineer, so that's why they're recommending that, because we can reuse these vessels, and this technology has been used, I believe it's been used in Barnstable. So again, they did confirm that, so it does work. But we will get more information out to the public prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
And also the blending. Don't forget that, because it's too easy just to say it. Okay. Any other comments? We have a motion?
Already did,
Is that Dean's, that whole, you said?
and I second.
You seconded,
Yeah.
okay.
And that was for both articles, too.
All right, any more discussion? Seeing none. Jeffrey for a vote.
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Shireen?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you, Alex.
We move to recommend.
Oh, we have to, that's right. We have to close out the,
Was a move to place? Oh, that was a
well,
move to
the special
recommend?
town meeting warrant, close it out.
Okay.
So this was a vote to recommend. Was that clear?
Yes.
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 Okay, good.
Yeah, and
So, Mr. Chair,
then we have
just-
to vote on it for approval. Is that what you're saying?
No, the vote you just took was your recommendation
Recommendation.
that would be printed in the warrants. I think we're good with that. The next item before we close the warrant is we typically go through the roster of who's offering the motion. We only have 3 articles, so I defer to the chair and the board how you want to handle that.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Since it is only 3 articles, and I have experienced before having to do a multiple of motions, I think the chair could do the 3 articles without any difficulty if the board was
Well, that's
No,
fine.
okay with
No
that.
problem.
Thanks a lot.
Fine.
No, that's fine. I get it.
Uh,
I saw my name on the first one.
Yeah.
All right, and
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the last item we need is a vote to close the warrant.
All right.
I move to close the warrant effective today.
Second?
Yep.
Second. Discussion? None? Shireen?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
The chair says aye.
Thank you.
Finally, thank you. Okay. Last on our agenda is our committee appointments. And tonight, we're looking at Community Preservation Committee, Community Housing Partnership Representative, and then an Open Space Committee. So, Shireen,
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Bruce Bean to the Community Preservation Committee as the Committee Housing Partnership Representative until June 30th, 2024, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
second discussion. Okay, Jeff,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Shireen,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. Next, Open Space Committee. We have 2 vacancies for alternate terms. 2 alternate terms to June 30th, 2022. I have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Gary Tennyson to the Open Space Committee as an alternate until June 30th, 2022, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
Second, have discussion? Seeing none, let's start with Corey.
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Shireen,
Aye.
chair says aye. We have one more that I didn't mention, Energy and Climate Action Committee. 1 vacancy term to June 30th, 2023, 1 vacancy term to June 30th, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Rachel Doreen to the Energy and Climate Action Committee until June 30th, 2023, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
Second, discussion? Seeing none, start with Dean.
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Shireen,
Aye.
chair says aye. And that finishes our work for tonight. Need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second, Jeff,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Shireen,
Aye.
chair says aye. Good night, Chatham. Thank you very much.
Aye.